What's up, friends? Welcome to my channel where we're doing music covers, original music, album reviews, song reviews, a little bit of social commentary here and there, whatever the day calls for. If you like what you see here, please subscribe to the channel. If you have content on here, I will subscribe to you as well. I am all about supporting up-and-comers on here. Today we are getting into the long-awaited, much-anticipated, brand new Counterparts album, a eulogy for those still here. I have been listening to Counterparts since their second album, The Current Will Carry Us. I actually remember how I found out about them. Victory Records was really repping them hard alongside the Close Your Eyes album, We Will Overcome. I bought that album back in the day and loved that one. And whenever it was being advertised, it was always kind of being advertised alongside The Current Will Carry Us. And eventually Curiosity got the best of me because it has really, really cool album art. And what I found was just such a great band that on that particular record kind of felt like a very heavily Misery Signals influenced band with even a little bit of Poison the Well influence in there, and like some crushing breakdowns, extremely emotional, well-written lyrics. And that's where I was kind of like surprised that Victory was repping them alongside of Close Your Eyes, because Close Your Eyes, when they were around, was a very religious, uplifting pop punk kind of band. Probably the churchiest sounding pop punk band I've ever heard. But We Will Overcome was such a great album, and I really do miss those guys. But Counterparts is very much not that. They are a band that lyrically takes us down some of the darkest, most hopeless feelings we feel in life, alongside some more technical, melodic, hardcore kind of music, with barely any clean vocals, barely any accessibility to the mainstream. They were just kind of polar opposites. But nonetheless, I am super happy that I found out about this band, because after that record, they released The Difference Between Hell and Home. And to this day, I still kind of consider that their crowning achievement. It was such an amazing album. It had songs like Debris, which I covered on this channel on guitar, and Outlier, that the lyrics were just so specific to how I have felt so many times in my life. And the music is just so good, and the vocalist and lyricist, there's nobody in the scene coming with it this real. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I feel like a lot of bands kind of put the fun factor or the heavy factor or the technical factor to the forefront. But when you read some of the lyrics of some of the newer bands, there's nothing really that speaks to your soul quite the way that Counterparts does. They followed that up with Tragedy Will Find Us, which I kind of consider to be their least good album, even though it has some great songs too. Counterparts have no bad albums, but that's the one where I didn't really feel like they brought anything new to the table. Nothing really stuck out to me too much. You got You Aren't You Anymore. Bought that one, and it was pretty good too. But sometimes in this band's consistency, you kind of get only a few tracks of memorability. And I kind of felt that way also with their last album, Nothing Left to Love. Couple great tunes in there. Nothing in there that wasn't good music, well-written music. But what are you going to remember? What are you going to want to go back to? And when it comes to Counterparts, 9 times out of 10, I'm coming back to The Difference Between Hell and Home. It's such a good album, man. If you haven't heard it, if you're a fan of Misery Signals, that original melodic hardcore kind of sound, it's just so good from start to finish. Whenever Counterparts drops a new record, people are ready to hear it. But I don't think the anticipation for a new Counterparts album has been so great as this one. Like, everybody was waiting for this thing to drop. I was waiting for this thing to drop. And all the singles that I've reviewed so far on this channel leading up to this album, I've given perfect ratings. The cat just jumped through the window, and that's why the light is all weird, so blame him. And that's actually a good segue to get into this album, because the first actual track of this record, Whispers of Your Death, is about the vocalist Brendan Murphy's cat, Kuma, who got diagnosed with female leukemia. And at the time that he wrote the track, it looked like he was going to make it out of it. And having just lost a cat that I had for a decade, who was very near and dear to me, Kringle, after months and months of giving him IV treatments at home and doing everything I could to keep him alive, and then finally losing him, I was happy to hear that his story ended a little bit more on a happy note when that song was released. But as it turns out, at this point, the cat did pass away. So let's dive into this album. The first track is dated July 26, 2020. I did the best I could to research the significance of this song title, and it looks like it's the date he found this cat. And it's a nice little atmospheric, short instrumental intro piece to get this thing moving, and it leads into Whispers of Your Death. If you really want to hear an in-depth analysis of this track from me, I reviewed it on my channel, and after hearing it, I teared up a little bit, just because it was so relevant to what I was going through at the time, with the best companion you could ever ask for. But aside from the lyrics, which are amazing, and the fact that this guy is writing a song about his cat, something you don't really see people do it too much in any music scene, really. It's just an incredible track, man. It's a top track. The music is incredible and very emotional. I'm just going to say it's a top track, and if you want to hear more of my view of that particular track, check out my review on this channel. Next is number 3, Bound to the Burn. This is another pre-release single, and it's actually one that was released and I didn't catch it. So I didn't review this one prior to the release, but even by their standards, this song is really heavy. Really, really heavy. And all I was thinking the entire time that I was listening to this is how I really want this to be the next Counterparts song I cover on guitar. Like, I really want to learn this one. All the riffs and breakdowns here, just so tasty. Some of this song's heaviest moments remind me of early August Burns Red. We've got plenty of the Misery Signals-esque melodic sections. It's very energetic and uplifting musically. Meanwhile, the lyrics are very grim and borderline suicidal, honestly. I don't know how it works, but it just does. And this song is just so gripping and engaging and just masterfully done from start to finish. Amazing track and super heavy. Number 4, Unwavering Vow. This is the first track I heard leading up to this new album. I did a thorough review of it already. I'll just reiterate that the ending of this song, the climax of this song, is just so powerful. But the chorus is really, really good too. And once again, like, some of his vocal delivery is reminiscent of Jake of August Burns Red in certain sections, but at the same time, it's just that signature Counterparts sound. And I gave this song a perfect 10 when I reviewed it, and I still do now. Number 5 is the title track, a eulogy for those still here. I was just speechless while listening to this one. As I read along, this comes off as a song for people in the same amount of pain as those who have taken their own lives but are still here. And I've been there many, many times. From 2017 onward has been a pretty tough journey for me, honestly. And, you know, it takes me back to a lot of wasted time in my life, and how a lot of that wasted time and interactions with just awful people have hindered me today in being able to form new relationships and be around large groups of people. And since 2017, I have been maintaining a house by myself that I used to share with someone who chose to run out on her family, shack up with the biggest piece of shit that you could ever imagine. Tool bag, loser. I'm in a small town where everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows that I put all this time and all this effort and all this money into somebody that was just going to bang trash, essentially. Stepped on me, stepped on my family. And that's hardly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, I cannot count how many people have humiliated me or wasted my time. I spent my entire 20s putting my all into all these bands with all these people, just to find out that people would rather either get high and party or just not put any effort in, and just basically waste my time. And in a lot of the bands that I've been in my life, I've been the primary composer, so I've lost a lot of compositions. A lot of how people in your past treat you affect how you interact with people moving forward, or your ability to even interact with people moving forward. And we live in a world, in a country, where a lot of good people get stomped on and a lot of people get rewarded for being trash. Like, look at the people that have run the country. Look at people who run the system. You know, there's just so much in life when you're just a regular ass, hardworking, good dude that makes you just want to check out. And a lot of people have chosen to just endure that pain, but have still had the pain that a lot of people have had when they do take their lives. And a lot of people who have taken their lives have had a hell of a lot more. Like, I'm not going to lie, when Chester Bennington of Linkin Park took his life, I was kind of angry and just bewildered, and I almost just saw him as kind of like an ingrate, because this dude had, I think it was 6 kids, a wife that was actually going to stick by him. Huge, huge rarity in this world today. He actually was living the musical dream, was wealthy, didn't want for nothing. And that kind of, I guess, separates situational depression from clinical depression, which is something I'll touch on a little bit more when we're summarizing this album. But clinical depression, I suppose, is whenever you could have anything or do anything or be anything, but still just have this underlying sadness, this underlying pain, where you just can't rise above this cloud in your brain that's clinical. And I think to an extent this vocalist here has that. Whereas situational depression is just being somebody where you don't really need a million things to make you happy. You know what could make you happy, and you just can't get there. And that's something I can relate to, and something I think that separates me from this vocalist. So I try to understand clinical depression. Like, I've had situational depression affect me so hard after a while that I actually did, for a short time, take an SSRI medication that I've been off of for years now, just to kind of get out of my own head. Not because of a chemical imbalance, but just because of so much real life bullshit. But whether you have the clinical depression or the situational depression, some of us choose to stick around. And what I got from the lyrics of this track is that this is kind of like an ode to those people. There's also some hints of speaking out towards those with drug or alcohol addictions. I could be wrong. Like, I'm not gonna act like I know what was going on in the vocalist's head when he wrote all these tracks. Like, Counterparts has had songs all through their career that I've been able to relate to. In fact, a lot of bands have had songs I've been able to relate to, where there's a chance that as I'm reading these lyrics and interpreting what I think they're talking about, they could have been in a totally different headspace altogether, but I'm still getting something out of it. But this is what I get out of it. I hear him just speaking about people with drug or alcohol addictions too, and the lyrics to this song are so good that people could get something totally different out of it than what Brandon is trying to say. It's one of the best tracks on this album. It is a top track. And He employs more clean vocals in this track than I think I've ever heard him do in the past. This entire album has more clean vocals than I've ever heard them do in the past, where they still don't take center stage or act as a crutch for anything or change the sound too much. And when he does employ them, it kind of has a little bit of a day to remember delivery to them. It's done in a good way. All the music on this track is top notch. Everything on this track is top notch. It's definitely the title track for a reason. Number 6, Skin Beneath a Scar. All through the Counterparts discography, like I said, Brendan has inserted clean vocals here and there, but this is the first one I've heard where the clean vocals actually take the lead. This feels like an interlude. It's very melodic and continues the vibe of this album. I don't really have too much else to say about this one. Number 7, Sworn to Silence. This song is very reminiscent of Witness from the difference between Hell and Home and his two-step goodness. While I wouldn't consider this a standout track, it's definitely just some great and well-written melodic hardcore, and I can definitely see this one going over very well live. Number 8, What Mirrors Might Reflect. What I get from the lyrics of this song is a feeling of inadequacy and a loss of confidence that you once had with what you see when you look in the mirror. He writes the line, I ache to be anyone else. I often ache to be a former version of myself when I look in the mirror as opposed to being someone other than myself. Like I said before, I felt some of the feelings that he's felt, but I think for different reasons and in a different way. Like when I was at my absolute best, it was always wasted on trash. If I were to rewrite this line in context of my own life story, it would be more like, when I had nothing but love in my heart, nobody wanted it. Now that it's gone, I'm seen as hateful. In fact, when I finally get around to writing my own music, getting my own shit done, I'm going to use that line. While my issues and life experiences are different from Brendan's, the message of the song, the fixation on his flaws, is all too relatable. Musically, this song is classic Counterparts. Guitar takes the center stage here. Every riff and chug is pure perfection in this track. It feels very classic melodic hardcore, but still has a little bit of a modern twist, you know. Soil 2, featuring Kenny Widdowson. I looked up this person, and to the best of my knowledge, I think this is their merch guy. And I could not find him in this song. I don't know much about where he sits in this song. This is a sequel to the song Soil from The Difference Between Hell and Home. This one's a much more melodic and slower pace than the original Soil. It feels like another interlude. I don't really have much else to say about this one. Number 10, Flesh to Fill Your Wounds. At this point in the album, we just need some straight heaviness, man. And that's exactly what this is. It's such a banger. It has so much live show potential. This has the most breakdowns I've ever heard in a Counterpart song. Amazing songwriting here and great thought-provoking lyrics as well. I love how the beginning makes you think you're getting another moody, melodic kind of track, and then it navigates through breakdowns, thrash, technical riffing in 20 seconds, under 20 seconds, before we get to some two-step action. This track is all over the place, but still written solidly, super memorable, top track for sure, and what I would definitely consider to be the best song on the second half of this record. And that takes us to our closer. Number 11, A Mass Grave of Saints. This album's closer opens up with what might be this album's best clean vocal section. The whole song is basically built around this hook. As I read along in the lyrics, I watched the coffins close, wishing one were mine. I feel like it's a good place to start in summarizing and discussing this album. Like I said, there's a difference between situational depression and clinical depression. And if there's one thing I wish about the lyrics of this album, it's that I wish there was a little bit more specifics into life events that have caused Brendan to think the way he does, feel the way he does, and write the way he does. You know, you got the feelings of inadequacy, you hear about that, and you hear about the actual pain. And in some of the older songs like Debris and Outlier, you get those specific feelings about feeling like an outcast, never being good enough for anyone. I guess I just wanted to read a little bit more into like situational things in the lyrics that cause these lyrics to be so graphically, I don't want to say depressing, because that sounds like the guy's just a downer, and he's not. Like, if you watch some of the interviews and stuff, he seems like a great guy, a fun guy, just a guy that has went through some stuff in life, and I wanted to know a little bit more about that stuff. If I was going to say anything negative about this album, which is very good, is nothing that's specific to Counterparts or in any way, and that's just the bass guitar is just non-existent in this thing. One thing I like about the modern, more djenty style of music is it's really got more bass guitar coming to the forefront than it really has before in metal music. You got more people doing like some funk, pop, slap, more stuff where the bass is not doing what the guitar does all the way through. I was listening for bass guitar all through this thing, and I couldn't really find anything noteworthy to say about that. So that's all I can really say negative about this album. This is a very, very good album. This is definitely Counterparts' second best album. I still like the difference between Hell and Home a little bit better, but this is definitely Counterparts' second best album. This is one of Counterparts' best albums as far as placing the tracks. You know, like some of the Counterparts albums are a bit front-loaded, whereas this one has a lot of top tracks in the beginning, middle, and end. Just a lot of solid, memorable songwriting. More breakdowns than ever. This is probably the heaviest Counterparts album, for sure. The best guitar melodies they've done in years. I love when Counterparts puts quick blasts into other sections, and they do that a bunch on here. The clean vocals are at their absolute best. At this point of listening, I've only listened to this album 3 times so far. I'm going to give it an 8.7, but this album is going to grow more over time. And with even more repeated listens, I'm sure it will have me noticing, remembering, and appreciating all of its little nuances more and more. And this is the best album they've done in years, and definitely my second favorite. And once all of this album really sinks into me, I'll probably end up giving it a 9 out of 10. They've done a great job here, and I just love this band's consistency. I love the fact that despite all the lineup changes they've had over the years, they still keep trucking on. Brendan still keeps trucking on as what I think is the only original member of this band. There was a lot of parts in here that really spoke to my soul, and a lot of parts that got my head banging. There's a lot of parts where both the music and the lyrics are so good that you don't know which to focus on. It's a very, very solid and memorable piece of their discography. It's a standout piece of their discography. And as their career goes on, this will definitely be one of the releases that people are going to go to when they say this is one of Counterparts' best albums. That's all I really got to say about this one, guys. Until next time, thanks for watching.